Again, I'm Brian Hoelscher. I'm the executive director and CEO here at MSD. I'm going to give you just a little bit of information on MSD, just to have a good starting point. And then I'm going to talk about the 6 propositions that we have on the ballot coming up in April. So quick overview, MSD is formed by, it's a government utility, and we're formed by the state per a provision of the state constitution. We have a voter approved charter that serves as our organic law, and that drives the way we run our organization. Our board of trustees have 6 members. 3 are appointed by the mayor of the city of St. Louis and 3 by the county. We are 2 utilities with 2 separate operations and 2 different sources of revenues. One is wastewater. That's what happens going down the sink when you wash your dishes, drains in your house. That's the wastewater. Stormwater side of the utility is taking care of stormwater that falls from the sky. So the Prop Y, when I talk about this, is just the wastewater portion of our business. 520 square mile service area. We currently serve all of the city of St. Louis, almost 90% of St. Louis County, 1.3 million customers, 88 different municipalities. There's some stats there on our facilities. And the one thing that really drives our program, especially drives Project Clear, is that we have the 4th largest sewer system in the United States. As far as our service area, MSD does not annex folks into our service area. Folks ask to be brought in. So this is MSD's current boundaries. On the right-hand side is the Mississippi River. The top or north is the Missouri River. And to the south, though it wiggles in and out of our district, is the Merrimack River. Right now, we serve all the city of St. Louis. And as you move to the left, you'll see the red line that's on the far left. That's about Highway 109 in Wildwood. So generally, we serve everything out to about that boundary. The balance of the county to the left or west actually flows away from MSD's current service area and is treated by facilities in Eureka and Pacific and folks who are out in that area. Again, it's almost 90% of the county and the city. If anybody wants to get in the district, again, they ask us, then we go through the process of bringing them in. MSD does not annex in order to increase its service area. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, again, there's 6 propositions. One is Proposition Y. I'm going to spend most of my time on that. And the other 5 have to do things with our charter change. So we'll start with the wastewater rate proposal. Just a little bit of background. It's an initiative to improve water quality throughout the St. Louis region from our wastewater. It's a long-term effort by MSD. So I'd go ahead and change the slide if you would. Thank you. It's a long-term effort. It's being taken as part of an agreement we had with the EPA, Missouri Coalition for the Environment, and the Department of Justice. Requires us to come in complete compliance with the Clean Water Act by 2039. To do that, it's going to take billions of dollars in order to bring our system up to meet the requirements of the Clean Water Act. To date, we've removed 91 overflows from our system. This is places where, because stormwater is getting in with the wastewater, it fills the pipes up and causes them to overflow, usually into creeks and streams and sometimes into people's homes. We have 91 left. We've completed about 50% of the work on the overflows. You're going to see a rate proposal that looks different for those of you who've seen the past ones. Originally, when we started the program, we thought we'd be looking at double-digit or 10% and greater increases for the coming 4 years, above what the current rates were. It turns out we have been able to do things very cost effectively, and you'll find that the proposals with additional bonding, you'll find the increases are in the low single digits, in the 3% range. As far as our credit, it's been growing since we started this program. Right now we have a AAA bond rating with S&P, and then a AA plus and AA1 with the other 2 bond rating agencies. That allows us to borrow money at very competitive rates. It also then results in saving us money because we have less debt service that we have to pay back. This next program, which is the balance of this fiscal year, the next 3 years, we need to set up something to fund the start of an additional $1.6 billion worth of capital work in order to stay on schedule with the requirements of our consent decree. Some of the bigger things that are going to go on, we will eliminate 50 more wastewater overflows from the sanitary sewer system. We will be required to build 60 miles of new wastewater sewers to provide additional capacity. We see they're inspecting 64,000 manholes. That's just an example of a system-wide program we have to make sure that the existing system as it is now continues to operate appropriately and doesn't get blocked up. We do have one non-consent decree requirement that's in this four-year program, and that's to replace our incinerators at the Bissell and Lemay treatment plants. We incinerate the sludge that comes from the treatment plants, comes from the treatment process at those two locations. Excuse me, because of a change in requirements to air quality standards, we have to replace those incinerators and bring in new technology. That would be a big part of this program. And finally, the largest one having to do with overflows, we will be building a tunnel from our current Fenton treatment plant in Fenton down to and bringing those flows down to the lower Merrimack treatment plant. That will allow us to eliminate the Fenton treatment plant, which is in the floodplain of the Merrimack River, but also provide additional capacity for us to be able to eliminate some of the overflows that are in that area. So this is what Propositions Y is about. Just a little background on how we got here. The process is laid out by our charter. The staff develops a rate proposal for a 4-year period in order to take care of all of our needs. That rate proposal goes in front of our 15 organization rate committee, commission. That rate commission reviews our proposals, usually makes some slight modifications to it, understands what it is we're proposing to spend the money on. They make a recommendation of our board of our trustees. Our board of trustees then review the recommendations of the rate commission and decide what to put in front of the voters as to how we should fund the next 4 years of the program. So what Proposition Y is going to ask is whether or not the voters want to authorize MSD to have an additional $500 million worth of bonding capacity to help pay for the next, this year and the next 3 years of the capital program. This slide, especially for voters, is one of the most important parts of the slide, one of the most important parts of the presentation. It's the result of the vote. So if you look on the left-hand side of the chart, if the public votes yes to authorize an additional $500 million worth of bonding capacity, what you see what happens to the typical monthly cost for a typical residential customer. So currently we're in fiscal year 2021. Right now, the typical residential customer pays $56.40 per month for wastewater service. With the bond financing, that amount will go up for the average, for the typical customer, a little over 3% each one of the next 3 years. That will bring the monthly cost for the typical residential customer in 2024 up to $62.59 per month. That $62.59 will put us just slightly above the median cost of wastewater for large wastewater entities throughout the country. The public also has the right to vote no if they decide that they don't want us to borrow additional funds. It's the same kind of question you have when you decide whether or not to borrow money to pay for a car, for instance. So in this case, instead of borrowing money, we will just use the rates to pay for the program. Again, if you look at the right-hand chart, if the public votes no, again, the current monthly charge for the typical residential customer is $56.40 per month. If we vote no and just use rates, that amount will have to go up an average of 15% per year till 2024, where the cost for the typical residential customer per month will be $86.12 per month. That's the choice that we've laid in front of the voters. Decide which way we want to go forward. Again, we do have to do the work as part of the consent decree in agreement with the federal government. as well as Coalition for the Environment. The question in front of the voters is, how do we pay for this? This is just a breakout of where the current $56.40 per month for the typical residential customer goes. It's an interesting slide. We get asked this most of the time when we come out. If you look on the right-hand side, operation and maintenance, $22.11 per month. That is what goes to us operating and maintaining the system as it currently exists. The balance, the capital improvements, which is the cash portion, as well as the debt service from the borrowing, those are all related to the consent decree and the cost of Project Clear. You'll notice our operation and maintenance of our system as it is right now at $22.11. That's about 40% of the current monthly rate, of the current monthly cost. Just like I said, as you borrow for anything, obviously there's a point where all of a sudden that borrowing has to be paid back. You take a look at this chart, the orange line, which is the bottom line, that is the anticipated monthly cost for a typical residential customer, assuming that the public continues to approve an appropriate level of additional bonding. The black line is a line that, assuming starting now, the public decides to pay for this just with rates and doesn't want MSD to borrow any additional funds. Just as you would expect, borrowing money now keeps rates lower, keeps the cost lower until you get to about 2035 when we sell our last set of bonds. We're very close to the end of the consent decree in 2039. At that point, if we were to go with no bonds, you will see that then the cost goes below, the black line dips below the orange line, and you'll see a difference between the orange line and the black line. There would be a difference there out to 2065. And that is where you're paying off the remaining debt service that exists, even though you're not building any more work with regard to the consent decree. Typical kind of thing that you would expect, whether you were paying cash for something or if you were borrowing money. This is just and that was, just to be clear, that was just a snapshot of the way things look exactly right now. Obviously, we have to make adjustments every year as reality, as we see how things really go. Second thing I want to go over, there's 5 additional items that will be on the April 6th ballot. These are amendments to MSD's charter. We go through a process similar that we do for rates. Staff will put together recommended changes to our charter. Those recommendations will go to a 12-person charter change commission. They will review our proposed changes. They will review our charter and recommend some of their own changes. Their recommendations go to our board of trustees. They take a look at those recommendations, and every 10 years we put these on the ballot for the public to decide whether or not we should make changes to our charter. So I'm going to go over what the content of those 5 items will be. First is Proposition 1, just removes obsolete provisions, modernizes certain parts of the language of our charter where the intent is to make sure we match state statute. There's different references that changes in language. It's kind of a catch-all just to update our charter. Proposition 2 has to do with how our board members approve legislation. Right now, as I'd indicated before, we have 3 trustees appointed by the city, the mayor of the city of St. Louis, and 3 appointed by the county executive of St. Louis County. For MSD to pass legislation requires 2 positive votes from 2 city trustees and 2 county trustees. Where an issue sometimes arises is we have a vacancy. Recently, we had one in the city that left us with only 2 city trustees. If a city trustee had a conflict with a particular action, even if they wanted it to pass, they had to abstain. And that stopped us from doing business on that certain action. So working with the Plan Amendment Commission and with our trustees, we're proposing a slight modification that with a unanimous consent of at least 5 present board members, it will only take 4 votes of any kind to pass an action as opposed to 2 city and 2 county. And that'll prevent us from running into the situation where all the trustees want to pass a piece of legislation, but they're held up due to a continuing conflict of interest. They'll allow us to serve the ratepayers better. Next slide. Proposition 3 deals with our rate commission. Our rate commission has been in place since 2000. There's a couple things we needed to clarify exactly how the delegates from the 15 individual organizations, how they participate in the process, length of the proceedings. Under the current rules, the rate commission has 120 days to consider every rate proposal, and they can ask for a 45-day extension from our board of trustees. In the last 20 years, they've always asked for that extension. So they asked that our board of trustees consider just making the length of the proceedings 165 days to simplify their scheduling process, especially with regard to public meetings. And the board thought that was a good thing to put in front of the voters. And finally, there are 5 factors that both our rate commission and our board review when taking a look at a rate proposal. The rate commission asked that one of those be modified slightly so that it better reflects how they review rate proposals. Proposition 4 will change the compensation for our trustees. Right now, as it's been since 1954, our trustees get paid for attending 1 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees per month. That's $25, and that $25 times 12 months means right now they're being compensated $300 per year. The Plan Amendment Commission thought it would be appropriate to pay them $25 for each day they have a full public meeting of the trustees. So besides just the regular meeting, the trustees also have a committee day where we sit and we go through all the committee work prior to the regular meeting. So the change would then compensate them for both of those days per month, or 2 $25 meetings per month for the whole year. That results in a change in compensation for our trustees to cover their expenses from $300 per year, would raise it to $600 per year. And finally, there's Proposition 5. Right now, MSD's charter requires us to find a new auditing firm once a firm has performed a 5-year engagement of auditing the district. Problem we have run into is that it appears that the auditing our organization is somewhat unique. We have a very narrow scope of services. It's not exactly like the audits you would perform with other municipal corporations. And thus we have not a whole lot of audit firms that will express interest in doing our audits. So we're looking to find some way to increase the size of the pool when we do competitive selections. We went out and we took a look at what was going on and what was common, what was best practice in the industry. And the one area we saw a way to increase competition was to allow the auditor who currently holds the contract, allow them to competitively compete for the next contract as long as they change their lead audit partner. Again, it's a best practice that's currently going on in the auditing world, and we thought that was a good change to make sure we had good competition when we select auditors. Next page, before Saad takes over, these are a couple of contact locations. Customer service is if you have an issue with MSD, you can call there, we'll answer that. If you have billing questions, you can see those here. We do have a customer assistance program that offers assistance on the bill for low income or elderly folks with regard to the cost of our program. And then finally, my manager of public affairs, Sean Hadley, his contact information is on the lower right. So Saad, I think I'll pass it back off on to you.
All right, thanks, Brian. And so now we are going to, that's the presentation. We're now going to open it up for questions. Just as a quick reminder of how to do that, you do see that Q&A button appear on your screen. Use that Q&A button to type in your questions, and we'll mark how to answer those live. So Brian, we did get a couple of questions with some registrations, so I wanted to start off with those. The first one is from Miranda, who's from the North County area. She's asked she would like a sample of the impact on an individual's MSD bill if Proposition Y is approved.
So Saad, if you could back up and go to the slide that shows the for the rates for the typical. Okay, so when we are communicating this, we're taking the typical residential customer. I'll use the slide on the left. The typical monthly charge is $50, $56.40. Now that bill consists of two things. There's a set standard charge for operation and maintenance of the system, and there's another part of the charge that depends on your potable water usage. So that is a typical rate. It's different for everybody. If you want to find out exactly what your rate is, we had a number. One, you're getting your bill now. And then also every July, we will change your rate based on your winter water usage. We don't want to take potable water usage during the summer that may be watering the grass or washing the vehicles or filling a swimming pool, something like that. So that increases for a typical customer. One, you can see what your current bill is now. If your water usage between the two winter periods are the same, the percent increase you see will be the same as what you see on this chart. However, you're more than willing to call our billing number if you want more details than that, and our finance department can answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Brian. This was one from Christine in Greendale. How can we find out more about the work being done in our city now? And Brian, I can take this one as well. Christine, that information is on our website, msdprojectclear.org. You'll see it in the projects under the menu. You'll see projects. You can go on there. Also, just I can follow up as well with you specifically to get you some more information on that too. Okay, and then we had one from Doris, who I believe is from Bell Fountain Neighbors. She asked two separate questions, and so I'll break it down. Didn't we vote no on this before? And how do residents without income support get help for paying these increases?
Okay, let's talk about, did we vote no on this before? I'm going to go back 2 election cycles. So in 2016, we put this question in front of the voters, exactly what you see here on Prop Y for a wastewater. There was a bonding and a no bonding scenario. The voters in 2016 decided to approve additional bonding. The other one in 2016 was a property tax proposition so that we kind of changed the way we taxed everybody on how we paid for operation and maintenance of the stormwater system. The public voted yes on that. Those were both in 2016. I think the one you're remembering right now in 2019, MSD, based on public input, put a proposal out in order to raise money to do work, to do capital projects on stormwater in the area. MSD right now owns and operates the manholes, inlets, hard storm sewers. The things we don't do, and we don't have a revenue source for, is to take care of things such as creek erosion or flooding or backyard flooding. So we had heard from the public that they wanted us to put something on the ballot to consider providing that service. The public voted no in 2019. So I believe that's one you're thinking about. The one I'm talking about right here, what we're talking about, we are on a 4-year cycle where we will come back to the public every 4 years, kind of let you know where the rates are and give the public an option as to whether or not they want to allow MSD to borrow additional money to pay for the next 4 years service or not. So that's kind of where we were. The no vote was on a stormwater initiative that the public voted down. The other one has to do with affordability. I think both of them have to do with affordability. Looking at this screen, we have a customer assistance program for low-income individuals. If you see the number right there, as well as the email address, our customer assistance program allows for the bills to be reduced by 1/2. This is both for low income, and there's also an age component to these. That's a normal program we have that's been in place for quite a while. The second part I would put out there is, especially with the coronavirus going on and potential impacts to households there, if you start having problems being able to pay your bills, what I suggest is contact the billing department. You see the toll-free number there. Let us know ahead of time that there may be a problem. And oftentimes we can try and work out some kind of payment plan or different schedule in order to help you get past this and stay current with your bills.
Right, and those were all the questions with the registrations. I did get a couple during the presentation, so I'll start off with Christine's because I think it's a good one. After Project Clear is done and MSD is in compliance with the consent decree, will rates decrease?
Yeah, Saad, I think what I'd ask is go to, if you can, the long range rate structure. There you go. There you go. Christine, what I ask, just take a look at this chart. So our work, the work will actually end in 2039, but we will already have the funding for some of those. So you can see under the two scenarios, somewhere in 2035, 2036, rates have the potential for going down 3 to 4 years before we actually complete the program. Now, this is the environmental world, and this is assuming there are no changes to environmental regulations. We are doing a very good job of maintaining the system. We don't want the system to get in the condition it was when we started this particular consent decree. So the money is in there to make sure the system keeps working and we're in good shape. The one item, the one caveat I just want to put out there, our industry is always subject to potential changes in environmental regulations that could cause additional costs. But based on everything we know now, if you take a look at this, somewhere around 2035, 2036, we'll have the opportunity to decrease rates from where they will be at that time.
All right, thank you, Brian. And we do have one last question in here. I think you addressed it before, but this one's from Mayor Bill Hook from Belnor. Mayor Hook, thanks for joining us. He asked, is Prop Y the same as what was not passed last year or 2 years ago? And so I think you addressed that with Proposition S being passed or not passed in April of 2019.
Okay, so I think what I'm seeing here is Prop Y the same as that was not passed, and no, it's not. I explained earlier it's a stormwater. So the question is, where are we going to go next? So on the stormwater issue, MSD plan right now is based on public input, is we're going to go out after this election and have a discussion with the public about stormwater one more time. The question is going to be, are we in a good place? Does the public not want MSD collecting funds and participating in flooding and erosion projects throughout the entire district? If that's the word we get, that's the way we'll proceed. If the public comes back to us and we get the impression they'd like another opportunity to have MSD collect funds and provide a capital stormwater program in the future, we'll move forward with that. But we're going to be going out to the public and collecting information after this election for just about a good 12 months to find out where the public sits and see if they would like, whether or not they would like us to pursue stormwater. Again, that was the proposition that failed in 2019. We're going to be driven by what desires we hear from the public.
All right. I don't see any more questions. I'm just going to pull up the contact page in case anybody needs those numbers still. Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate your guys' time. There are other opportunities for this presentation as well. They're listed on msdprojectclear.org/townhalls. And of course, if you have any additional questions, you can use the contact information on the screen to get some answers. We appreciate your guys' time. Thanks. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, everyone.